Hey guys, this is Mr. Neblina with Neblina's Notes and Squared. Today we will be focusing on division. Our learning goal is I will learn how to divide up to 4-digit dividends by 2-digit divisors using various strategies. Our strategies are, the first thing is estimation. Estimation is a good tool to figure out what our answer should be around, and it's an approximate. Two, the second strategy is partial quotients using area model. And lastly, it's long division, which I think is the most practical and most used way to divide numbers. Now, estimation. We have to change our numbers into compatible numbers, numbers that can be used to divide other numbers easily or fit easily into each other. Let's get started. We're going to use our first example is 381. Okay, go here. We're going to use 381 divided by 91. Our first number here is called the dividend. This is our first number, our dividend. Our second number here is our divisor. Okay, the divisor is being the number that you use to divide, and the dividend is the number that is being divided. And our answer to a division problem is a quotient, which we'll find soon. Okay. When I am estimating, I want to look at my divisor. I want to focus on the tens, and I kind of want to round down either to, I'm going to change it to 90 because 91 is close to 90. It's closer to 90 than it is to 100, so I'm going to round down to 90. Now, if you know your math facts, this might be easier for you. If you're not very strong in your math facts, you might struggle. So I'm going to list our math facts for 9 all the way to 4. So when I'm looking at my dividend, I got to change my dividends into a friendly number that can be easily divided by 9D. Or right now I'm just going to focus on 9. So I look at 38 and I can see 27 and 36 are pretty close. 36 is closer to 38 or 38. So I'm going to change 38 to 60. Now I could focus on 36 divided by 9, and this is the squiggly lines means approximate, right? Because I changed my numbers 381 to 91. And this helps me so I can get an approximate answer faster. Instead of doing 381 divided by 91, I can just say, hey, 381 is close to 360, 91 is close to 90. I can figure out this division problem faster by estimating. Now I know 36 divided by 9 is 4. And then our zeros on the ones place will cancel out, and my answer is 4. And I could come to the side and just do a quick math check by multiplying 90 and 4, which would give me 360. 0 times 4 is 0. 9 times 4 is 36. So that is the right answer. And our true answer, if we were to set it up in long division, which we'll learn shortly, 381 divided by 91 is actually 4 with remainder 21. So our answer, using estimation, we know that our answer is going to be around 4, and that is true because our quotient is 4 remainder 1. Okay, now for our second strategy is partial quotients using area model. So area model, again, it's just an easier way to divide our numbers. So again, 768 is our dividend, 24 is our divisor. How I remember this is when I create the area model, I'm going to draw a large rectangle standing vertically, and I'm going to put our divisor on the outside and 768 on the inside, or the den, because I can call my square or my large vertical rectangle a den, and 768 is the den, the dividend. So dividend goes in the den. I got to do, I like to divide by tens. Okay, so I know 24 times 10, I put my partial quotient because it is part of the answer or part of the quotient, partial quotients. I'm going to do, and I like to put a multiplication sign up here. 24 times 10 gives me 240. I'm going to subtract, and I get 825. And what I do with the rest of this answer is I'm going to make another box, and I just pull it up, 528. I know another 10 can fit in there. 24 times 10 gives me 240. Okay, I'm going to subtract. I get 8. I got to borrow from my 5. or my 100 spot. This becomes a 4, and my 100 rolls over to the 10. That's 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. 4 minus 2 equals 2. Now I have 288, and I can continue to do so. I could keep going on tens. Again, 288 rolls over, and I know 24 times 10 gives me 240. I subtract, I get 8 and 4, 48, and I make another box, and I bring the 48 over. Now 24 can go into 48 easily twice. 24 times 2 is 48. I subtract, I get 0. Now these are my partial quotients. The 10, this 10, this 10, and this 2 are partial quotients. They are part of the entire answer. Now I add them to give me the whole quotient. 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 2 gives me 32. Now, how can I check to see if my answer is correct? Well, I'm going to add or multiply my quotient times my divisor, and that should give me my dividend, 768. So let's go off to the side and check. 32 and 24. I'm going to multiply that. That gives me 8. 4 times 3 is 12. Add my placeholder. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. I add 8. 4 plus 2 is 6. And 6 plus 1 is 768. And that is correct. Okay, so that is my first step in partial quotients. Okay, now you don't have to use tens, right? Because when we first did it, we knew 24 times 10 was 240. 24 times 20 gave me 480. 24 times 30, that gave me 772 or 720. And lastly, 24 times 40 gave me 960. We can't use 960 because that goes over our dividend. So we have to use numbers below. So if I wanted to try, I knew 24 times 30 or 20 gave me 720. I could use that 30 instead of a 10. So if I wanted to set up again, here's my vertical dividend. 768 goes inside. I could use 30 as my partial quotient, and I know 24 times 30 gives me 720. I subtract. I get 8, 4. 48 goes into my next box. And 24 can go into 48 2 times, and that gives me 48. I could subtract, I get 0. And that 30 plus 2 gives me 32. Now, if you noticed, there's less boxes, but 24 times 10, I can do that as many times as I am allowed to. That doesn't go over each of my dividends, right? So 32 is my correct answer. All right, so now our last strategy is long division, and we're going to focus on this problem. We have 937 divided by 5. 937 is our dividend, and 5 is our divisor. We have a 3-digit dividend and a 1-digit divisor. I listed on the side my 5s, my math facts are 5s, and I don't always want to list out, but I want to be able to know what my math facts are for my divisors, which I'll go in a little bit. Here are the steps that I listed on the side of how we're going to divide, and I call this my long division family, right? It starts off with dad for our first step. Okay, our second step is mom for multiply, and our third step is sister or subtract. Our fourth step is our brother, our bro, bring down. And lastly, if needed, is our rover, our dog's name, or remainder. Another acronym that works is dirty monkeys smell bad. D for dad or divide, and for multiply, S for subtract, and B for bring down, right? Smell bad. Rover we'll talk about at the end. If we have any leftover remainders, I'll show you how to do that. Now, we always set it up with our first number is our dividend in our division problem, and our divisor goes outside. And I'm always focusing on the first digit in my dividend. In this case, it's my 9 in the 100 spot. And I ask myself, how many 5s can fit into this first digit? And when I ask myself how many times does it fit into, that's technically dividing. So I'm going to say 5 can go into, how many 5s fit into 9? And I come over here on my left side to my math facts, and I know 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10. I don't want to go over 9. I want to stay below it. So I'm going to use 5 times 1, right? 1 5 can fit into 9. So I put that 1 up top, and then I'm going to multiply, which is my second step. 5 times 1 is 5. And my third step is subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. Okay, and then after that, I'm going to bring down. I bring down the next digit, which is a 3 in the 10th spot. Now I have 43 as my new quotient. Okay, now I ask myself, I go back to the very top. I go back to my division. How many 5s can fit into 43? I can come off to the side. Well, I know 5 times 9 is 45. I don't want to go over 43. So what I do is I'm going to go right below it. 5 times 8 is 40. And again, I write 8 at the top of my division bar. And then I multiply. 5 times 8 gives me 40. So I'm going to write 40 here. Right? I multiplied, and now I'm going to subtract. I get 43 minus 40, and I get 3. And now I bring down the 7. Okay? Now I have 5, or 37 divided by 5. I always say my dividend first. So my new dividend is 37. Again, I go back to my math facts on my left-hand side. Again, I don't want to use 40 because 40 is above 37. So I'm going to use 35. And how do I get there? 7 5s can fit into 37, which gives me 35, right? 5 times 7 is 35. I subtract after I multiply. And then I get 2. Okay, now this is where the rover comes in. There's nothing left for me to bring down. There's no other number there. So what I have to do now is my 2 becomes my remainder. My 2 is my remainder. Okay. Now remember, every time I divide, now I just got to check my answer. I always multiply my quotient to my divisor, and that's going to give me my dividend. So let's check our work. And don't forget, it was 187 remainder 2. I'm going to show you what we do with the remainder. 187 times 5. 7 times 5 is 35. Carry the 3. 8 times 5 is 40. Plus the 3 is 43. Okay, 5 times 1 is 5. Plus the 4 is 935. Well, that's not 937. But you add the remainder. 935 plus 2 gives me 937, which is my dividend. Okay, here is our second example. Our dividend is 7,230, and our divisor is going to be 30. Now we're going to set it up. Our dividend goes in our den, which is always our first problem in our division problem. Our divisor goes outside. Now, in the previous example, we listed our math facts for 5. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. We're not going to do that for 30, okay? Now, when I have a 2-digit divisor, 30 is a 2-digit divisor, it gets a little bit tricky. Now, I selected a multiple of 10 because 30 is a 10, so we can kind of start off easy. I can do the same thing. How many 30s can fit into 7? 7? It can't. It cannot fit into 7. 30 is too big. If it's too big, then I move on to 72. 30 is less than 72, right? I can kind of start off small. I know 30 times 2 gives me 60. 30 times 3 gives me 90. 30 times 4 is 120, right? I'm just multiplying my whole numbers, rolling over that 0. Okay, so again, I don't go over 72. I don't go over the quotient. So I know 90 is too big for 72. 60 is perfect. Okay, so I'm going to use 2. And I place my 2 over the 100 spot. I know some students like to put an X here because 30 cannot fit into 7, but 30 can fit into 72. 30 times 2, right? I multiplied after I ask myself how many 30s fit into 72. And I go to the second step, which is multiply. 30 times 2 gives me 60. After I multiplied, I'm going to subtract. I get 2, bring down the 1. After I subtracted, I'm going to bring down my next number, which equals 3. Now I can come over here to this side and I can say, look, I have 120. Why don't I go ahead and do 30 times 5 so I can show you 3 times 5 is 15. Roll over the 0. That's 150. I don't want to go over my next quotient, right? So I want to stay under it. And I know 120 is right below 123. Now, how many 30s can fit into 123? Well, I said it over here is 4. Okay, so 30 times 4 is 120. And I'm going to subtract after I multiply. I get 3. Bring down the 0 after I subtract, and I have 30. This is perfect. This works out perfectly. How many 30s can fit into 30? Well, I know that's 1 time. And so I multiply 30 times 1, which gives me 30. I'm going to subtract, and I get 0. When I have a 0 here and there's no other number for me to bring down, that means I am finished and I have no remainders. And I can go ahead and check 241. Oh, let me fix that one. 241 times 30. Okay, I have 0, 0, 0 all across the board. Add a placeholder. I go 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Carry my 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 equals 7. And I'm going ahead and add those. And of course, I'm going to get 7,230 as my answer. And for our last example, I'm going to be a little bit harder. I still have a 4-digit dividend and a 2-digit divisor. Again, how I set this up is my first number is my dividend. I have 3,827 divided by 15. Now, a lot of students do say this incorrectly. They say the divisor first, 15 divided by 3,827, and that is incorrect. You always start off with the dividend first. So I have 3,827 divided by 15. Now, 15, I kind of selected an easy number. You are going to have to come off to the side and figure out 15 times 1, maybe 15 times 2, 15 times 3, right? 15 times 4, 15 times 5. You might have to do that on your divisors. 15 times 1 is 15. I have here is 30, 45. I have 60, and then 75. Again, let's start off with division. Okay, our first step. How many 15s fit into 3? It can't. 15 is too big to 3, so I'm going to go over to my next digit, which is 38. How many 15s fit into 38? Well, I don't want 45 because that's big. So 30 fits perfect. How many 15s? 2 15s fit into 38. And I multiply 15 times 2. That gives me 30. After I multiply, I subtract, I get 8. After I subtract, I bring down the 2, and now I have 82. Okay, let's try 15 times 6. Well, I know 10 times 6 is 60. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 times 60 is 90. Okay, I decompose my numbers there to multiply a little bit easier. Again, 90 is too big. 90 is bigger than 82. So how many 15s fit in 82 without going over? And that is 5 because that gives me 75. So 5 15s fit in 82, and that gives me 75, right? I multiplied 15 times 5 to give me 75. After I do that, I subtract. Now I have to borrow here. 82 minus 75. This becomes 7. This is 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. After I subtract, I bring down the 7, which is my last digit. And again, 15 can go into how many 15s fit into 77? I'm going to repeat. It's the same number. I don't want to go over 77. It's my quotient. So I know 5 15s is 75. I multiply 15 times 5, and that gives me 75. I subtract 77 minus 75 gives me 2. There is no other number for me to bring down. So now I have 2 as my remainder. Remainder 2. Now, as we go into fractions, okay, 2, listen closely, will be my numerator, and 15 will be my denominator. Okay, so there are 2 possible quotients for this. It could be 2 55, remainder 2. Or the further you progress in the 5th grade, you will drop your remainders and you will start using fractions. So our answer would be 255 and 2/15. Okay, there is another possible answer which you'll get into decimals, but that is a whole nother lesson which we'll get into later in the future. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe. Leave any comments and let me know what you think. Thanks.